What's good, everybody? I'm the G with a PhD, and you're tuned in to the Green Gorilla channel. The place where black men can express themselves freely, straight up, no chaser. Now, you know what I like to do before I get things started. I want to give a shout out to all of the gorillas out there, everyone who's contributed and has become a member of the Green Gorilla channel. So let's take care of that right now. Yes, I want to give a shout out. I want to give a shout out to Anthony Taylor, Camp Low, Deshaun Nolly, Ab Media 83, Aaron Lloyd, Leroy Honeycutt, MLR, Julius Ferguson, Charles Rogers, Black Dog, Brother Love, Ryan Jackson, Infamous Chillin', Randall, Universal 178, Blacksword 404, Rasheed Barnes, Aaron Smith, The Walt Diddy Show, DH, C Truth the Revelator, Gold Professor, The Nameless Protagonist, Black Pill Ned Stark, Arthur Unknown, Odd Collard, Roderick Jackson, Dr. Tiasan Johnson, Damon Harris, Brian Williams, Kalan Jakala, Sherrod Martin, Ricky Dawson, NEU, Cedric Bowman, True 7360, BK Born Shaheed, James Washington, Hostile Adept, Seventh Coast Dojo, Ronan Martin, Shop Talk Live, WPR1, Rogish the Billmonger, I Care, Force Windu, Lady Miss Thing Green, BGS Ibmore, and Marvin Battle Jr. Thank you so much for becoming members of the Green Gorilla channel. Thank you for becoming members of the Green Gorilla channel. And you too can become a member of the Green Gorilla channel. And here is how. What's good, everybody? I'm the G with a PhD, and you're tuned in to the Green Gorilla channel, the place where black men can express themselves freely, straight up, no chaser. Today, I want to introduce you to my new membership program that consists of 5 levels where you can invest in the Green Gorilla channel on a monthly basis and receive level-specific perks. Memberships are special because they improve the quality of the content of the channel and will help me to be able to keep the channel going. Now, to participate in the Green Gorilla channel membership program, all you have to do is hit the join button, which is located right next to the subscribe button on my channel page. Now, for all of my subscribers who decide not to participate in my membership program, nothing will change. The content will keep coming the way it always has. Thanks for watching, and be careful out here, people. Bless. Yes, so that is how you can become a member of the Green Gorilla channel. Also, if you're looking to make a donation, this is how you do so. Issa Abduz, I hear you are already a member of the Green Gorilla channel, so you got me a little bit confused here, but you know, it is what it is. Perhaps maybe you let your membership lapse. Doesn't matter. Welcome back. So you also can make a contribution via Cash App, Patreon, or PayPal. Now, having said that, I want to get to the news, and then directly after the news, we will get to the main meat of what we came here for. So let's get to the news first. So recently, I read a article, and in this article, there was a declaration by U.S. Representative, Californian Representative Maxine Waters. And ultimately what she said was that Trump has no respect for black people. He's not doing anything for us. And for those young black men who think somehow they can align themselves with Trump, not only are they terribly mistaken, any of them showing their face, I will never ever forgive them for undermining the possibility to help their own people in their own communities. It is absolutely unconscionable. It is shameful. Man, do you hear the shaming? The tactic that's trying to be used here? I mean, ultimately, it's a free country, right? People can vote for who they want to in the United States of America. And if the Democratic Party just so happens not to appeal to black men for a wide variety of reasons, then there's no reason for black men to pull away from the voting process if they so desire as a matter of protest, or if they decide to vote for Trump because the Democratic Party has turned their back or a blind eye towards black men's desires and their needs. I mean, why else would the Democratic Party be so insistent on putting two draconian politicians at the helm of the nation's politics? Why? It's a smack in the face to black men. Didn't you think about that before you decided to endorse these two politicians? The mass incarceration bill drafter, Biden, and the draconian keep them locked up past their time, Kamala Harris. So now you're trying to shame us into voting for these people, and if not, then you'll never forgive us? Well, we don't even care about you forgiving us. I don't think that you can forgive yourself for having been a member of the Democratic Party for so long without having produced one scintilla of policy that has improved the quality of black men's lives. But moving on to the next subject, and as a matter of relevancy, as it relates to what we just discussed, the Latino vote. And it's funny though, because when you talk about the Latino vote, you don't see Latino politicians of any variety or sort coming out trying to shame, to lambaste, to ridicule, to engage in invectives or diatribes any members of the Latino community, whether they be men, women, young, old. There's no expectation that Latino voters will vote for a specific party, for a specific reason, and there's nobody in the leadership of the Latino community who's coming forward and saying that I'll never forgive you if you vote one way or the other. So how did we land ourselves in this kind of political predicament, and why are we being forced one way or the other to make a choice or a decision at someone else's behest? Otherwise, if we don't make the right choice, then we'll never be forgiven. Like, who does that? So look, Latinos comprise of about 40% of the population in Texas, and that's where I am right now. And of course, they make a difference. And one of the reasons that they make a difference is their unpredictability. If you're unpredictable in the way that you align your interest, and if you're unpredictable in the way that you align your vote, then it's much easier to get people to do your bidding and to grant you concessions and to make sure as a constituent that your demands will be met. But if you only deal with one group of people all of the time, then you're setting yourself up to be played. And that's what people are beginning to realize. I mean, but this should have been part of the black political playbook since the early 60s. Because, I mean, how many black politicians were telling black people, well, not black politicians, but black leaders of the Black Power movement, the Civil Rights movement? How many times have we been, told that just putting all of your eggs in one basket is not the way to go politically? Malcolm X talked about black people being a political football, right? Kwame Ture talked about black faces in white spaces and how this doesn't automatically, tokenism doesn't automatically amount to a net gain for black people. But we still keep doing the same thing. But there's a group of people, I call them the black managerial class of black America, and they've married their interests to the white liberals in the Democratic Party. And if you don't do their bidding, they somehow are going to shame you into believing, into thinking that somehow you've done something wrong to yourself, to your race, and to the people who've come before. It's absolutely ridiculous. And by the way, come on, Maxine Waters. Just going back to the older clip. Come on, Maxine, man. Like, you've been in office for how long? Isn't it time to, hand over the reins to someone else? Isn't it time to pass the torch, unless you're going to be a custodial black politician until the last breath you ever take? Like, these people are not great bridge builders. They're not great transitionary people. They don't even care about what it appears like. They want it to be known that they're racial custodial politicians. It's almost sickening. Another issue I want to talk about is poor brother Dwight Howard. Recently, his son has come out and said that my dad ain't a real dad. Damn, that's a hard thing to hear, man, for any man, to have a son that will come out and speak pejoratively about his father in the public. But as far as I'm concerned, this is just par for the course nowadays. It's okay to be disrespectful to your father. For all intents and purposes, we've already set a trend. The trend is, fuck daddy. My daddy ain't shit. That nigga ain't shit. He ain't never done nothing for me. He ain't gonna never do nothing for me. Fuck him. It's all about my mom. Now, that's the culture in the black community at the current moment. And primarily, as far as I'm concerned, this kind of sentiment, this kind of ideal about black men and the kind of respect that they're supposed to be receiving, this is all put forth out there by black women. Because not only is this young boy saying negative things about his father in the press, then you got his mother also saying bad things about the father in the fucking press. In the press. Now, I don't know what you know, but you don't put your business out there in the streets like that. If y'all got an internal conflict going on, first of all, you keep it inside. You don't have to go to all these goddamn blogs and to put your business out there on Front Street. But some fools love to perform. Some people just like attention. And so maybe possibly she's one of those persons that love attention. But here's the deal. A lot of black men are like, okay, you're going to treat me like I'm not a real father, like I'm some sort of uncle daddy. I see my daddy when I see my child when I get visitation. I really don't have any impact or control over the value of the kid's life. My involvement is tangential at best. How do you expect men to buy into that and to be these wholehearted, fully devoted fathers when they keep getting doors closed in front of them? Don't you think that that's like a deterrent? And then to hear, a child dishonor their father in public and it be encouraged by the mother? What kind of fuckery is this? Just think about it, man. There is no faith-based tradition in which, if you believe in faith-based traditions, basically there is none that asserts that it's okay to be disrespectful to your father in public. None. Where it's okay for you to say, fuck my daddy. My daddy ain't shit. But this is what we have in popular culture right now in America, man. And there's a certain group of people who like it this way because they want to be able to put out the narrative that somehow there's a group of men who are not living up to their responsibility and they're dumping all the responsibility on the women. But I can tell you from experience myself, man, that's not always the case. A lot of times women use kids as bargaining chips. And if the father is making a lot of money, they use that kid as a way to gain control and leverage over the man. And men are like, fuck it then. Like, if I got to divorce my kids, see, this is the funny thing about it. Women can fucking chop up the fucking kid in the uterus whenever they get ready. They could basically give the kid up for adoption anytime they get ready. A woman can say, I don't want to have shit to do with these kids, come get them, and be done with them. No penalization, no nothing. Nothing at all. But if a man somehow doesn't stand up to what is considered to be the norms, the prevailing norms about providing and taking care of the kids, then all of a sudden, we're gonna demonize him. We're going to demonize this man. But, I mean, look, I don't know the whole story, but I just find it, kind of ironic that you got a group of people who could treat children so badly, but at the same time, I mean, even to the point where they can kill them before they're born and treat them and neglect them with, the utmost nefarious kind of behavior when they are born, get slapped on the wrist when they do get punished, but then still have the nerve to go off on men. I just don't get it. I don't see how we can, preserve that kind of attitude and ideology, throughout the course of time when everybody's reaching out for equality and so on and so forth. But look, this is what she said about the daddy. Look, imagine having to text a third party to try to find out if this person plans on seeing their 2 kids that live here and that they haven't seen since July or spoken to since August before they leave the city. And the response is, I don't know. I got to see what the team doing. Basically, you done made him an Uncle Daddy, so, I hate to put it out there like that, but women are setting up a situation in which children are not really actually their children. Them your kids. We just Uncle Daddies. So we just get penciled in, so fuck it. We gonna pencil ourselves in when we get ready. That's just how I feel about it, man. You might disagree, you might think I'm wrong for feeling that way, but hey, that's just the way it is, man. You can't keep pulling like Lucy, holding the football, taking it, pulling it away, putting it back in, in view, pulling it away, putting it back in view, and keeping us all fucked up and confused about these kids, man. Either you're going to let us be fathers to these kids and have control of these kids, or either you're going to continue to badmouth us in front of the kids, which basically, that's a lack of respect right there. That's emasculation. But I digress, man. It's time for me to move on. Next subject. Back to Megan Thee Stallion. And once to say it's tangential to anything important, but I think it's important. You got Lil Baby, and then you got Megan Thee Stallion. Then you got the 2020 BET Hip Hop Awards. Lil Baby, man, has 14 gold albums. Well, not gold albums, gold songs. At least about 10 platinum songs from those 2 albums that he put out in the year 2020. Okay? So he got 2 albums that came out, 14 gold records, 10 platinum records, and he loses to Megan Thee Stallion, who has 2 platinum records, one with Beyonce on it, I think, and one with Cardi B, I think. Now, one by herself, I think, which is the Savage joint, and the other one is the WAP joint with Cardi B. And that's it. And she wins the Artist of the Year, even though somebody has 5 to 6 times the amount of platinum records that she has. How does that work? Explain to me what's the criterion for being the Artist of the Year. Getting shot in your foot? That makes you the Artist of the Year? Okay, well, I guess, man. It is what it is. But let me get out of this, man, and get into what I got to get into next. We got to talk about the News Corporation. So when we come back, we'll have a discussion about that. So I'll be back after the commercial break. We are back. I'm the G with a PhD, and you're tuned in to the Green Gorilla channel, the place where black men can express themselves freely, straight up, no chaser. And look, I'm here to let you know, man. You know, every now and then you might hear some words that are profane, but you're going to hear them come out of my mouth. It just is what it is. I mean, especially if I'm going off on a rant. I don't believe in the respectability politics. I don't subscribe to it. I think it's phony. I think it's some white bullshit. The way people, make themselves appear to be or look to be, you know, perfect and prim and proper. I just don't. I don't follow those norms. So if that's something you're looking for, you may as well go ahead and get the hell up out of here, man. I don't know where you're going, but you got to get the fuck up on out of here, because I don't play those games. Okay? So I'm just letting you know this is my trigger warning. So if you hear me go off on a rant, or you hear me do the F bomb or the S bomb or the MF word, it is what it is. Holla at you. See you. Wouldn't want to be you. Let the doorknob hit you with a good Lord split you. It is what it is. So thanks for Black Pill Ned Stark for the contribution that you've made. I really appreciate it, man. Thank you, bro. Appreciate that. So let's get to the business, man. I want to talk about News Corporation, man. And you know who News Corporation is, man. It's this huge media conglomerate that owns 20th and 21st Century Fox Films. It also owns the Wall Street Journal and the New York Post. Now, I could, if I wanted to, go on and on and on about the ways in which Wall Street Journal is anti-black misandrist and the way that New York Post is. But primarily what I want to do is I want to talk about motion pictures and TV shows. But tonight I'm not going to even talk about TV shows. I'm going to talk about major motion pictures. And we've been having this conversation. And this is just sticking to a theme that I've been covering. And it's about how black men are portrayed in movies, in media in general, but particularly in movies and TV shows. But tonight I'm just focusing on movies. And I'm not going to be here a long time tonight, man, because these things can extend to 2 hours. And I don't see the need to extend this thing to 2 hours. But ultimately, man, we need to demand that the media industry does better at depicting us. Everybody else is being depicted in a favorable light. They're being demonstrated, or being portrayed as competent and capable and respectable characters. But on the other hand, we're continuing to play, these deprecating roles. I mean, we're criminals, we're athletes, we're philanderers, murderers, drug dealers. Like, can we get a break? Can we be thrust into roles, into series where our positive characteristics are put on Front Street as opposed to all the negative things about people in the black community? I'm just tired of this shit. Everywhere I look, it's just black men being treated, as a utility or as a walking phallus, or black men, or basically the object of scorn from society in general because they're pathological and they have problems. So this is what this series is talking about, man. And I'm just trying to demonstrate to you the various ways in which all of these companies, each one of the big six, contribute to this problem. And some changes need to occur. And we need to make sure that they do. Thank you, Professor, for holding me down, man. I appreciate that, bro. And I appreciate the donation. So y'all ready to get into this, man? Because, I'm going to start it off. Now, the first thing I want to do is talk about, and this is kind of ironic because one could argue I'm guilty of the same thing. But what I wanted to do was I wanted to co-opt and to reappropriate the imagery of black people in general being characterized as apes. Okay? So that brings me to what? The Planet of the Apes. Okay? Now, the Planet of the Apes was put out in, the late 60s, man. And for the most part, the movie starred Charlton Heston and Roddy McDowall in this what they call a legendary science fiction masterpiece. So you got an astronaut, basically Heston, right, plays a character called Taylor, and he crashes and lands on a distant planet ruled by dun 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 apes, who basically use a primitive race of humans for experimentation and for sport. And soon Taylor finds himself among the hunted, his life in the hands of a benevolent chimpanzee scientist by the name of McDowell. Now, I don't know what you know, man, but this is just profoundly racist. I mean, it was racist from the beginning. Everybody knows, as far as I'm concerned, that this is an analogy. Okay, so how so? How's it an analogy? Okay, well, this '68 sci-fi classic was basically a Serling-esque allegory for racial relations in the civil rights era America, in which the historical relationship between whites and blacks was reversed. So it's like the Twilight Zone. It's all this is, right? Kind of like some sort of weird analogy to what's actually going on in America, okay? And that's what the whole thing was intended to be from the jump, okay? Now, of course, black people are apes. But it's a snapshot, actually, of what the world would look like if black men ran it. That's what it was supposed to be. A snapshot, or kind of like a delving into what society would look like if the niggas ran it. So you got warring factions of apes, so you got this kind of tribalism taking place amongst the apes, and corruption and brutality, and I mean, kind of like sort of what you saw in relation to divisions between white people, but there's always the one good, scientist or white person who's going to save the Negroes, which is the Negroes are now the white men, or Charlton Heston, or the white race. Because you don't see any black people in this movie. You see white people. White humans, right? White women playing the roles of the human beings in this story, man. So in the end, everybody knows, if you've seen the original version of this movie, that Taylor, basically Charlton Heston, loses his mind when he realizes that he really actually never left Earth to begin with. But he only traveled forward in time. And it's when he actually realizes this moment, right? At that moment, he realizes that he actually never left the Earth, but he just moved forward in time. He loses it, and he basically falls down to the ground on his knees in despair, because he realizes that the men of his time, the so-called enlightened, civilized white men, destroyed the planet by means of thermonuclear annihilation. Okay? You finally did it! Damn you to hell! I think that's kind of like the exchange that he has. That's his little soliloquy moment. Now, throughout the series of movies, this Planet of the Apes series, and now you have like even recent incarnations of this Planet of the Apes series, right? The funny thing to me about this is you get audiences and shit who actually cheer for the fucking apes. Literally. I mean, like, you'll see these people in fucking movie theaters. I'm talking about white people. They'll be in the movie theaters talking about how these apes were done wrong and whispering and snickering to each other and shit like that. But when they get out of the movie, they still revile black people. And black men in particular. And that's crazy to me. So you mean to tell me you have more empathy? You could sympathize with the plight of some fucking characters that are generated by computers in a movie, or people who play the role of apes in movies, than you can with actual people in the society in which you live. You can commiserate more with some monkeys on a screen than you can with real men or real women in the real world. Some sick shit going on in America, man. But you know, hey, it is what it is. So that's one, okay? And I only got 10 tonight. I'm not going to continue to go into this and keep going forever and ever and ever. I only got 10, okay? The next movie I want to talk about is The Predator, okay? So the blurb for The Predator is, deep in the jungle, several bodies have been discovered, skinned and hanging from trees. Although who or what could have done this is a mystery. Military covert specialist Dutch, played by Arnold Schwarzenegger, and his team are called in to eliminate the threat. But once in the heart of the menacing jungle, they discover something far worse than they could have ever imagined. The Predator, an alien which has come to Earth with cloaking technology, extensive combat skills, and a desire to hunt humans for sport. Now, what's funny about this movie to me, okay, and many people probably would kind of gloss over it and not really actually perceive it as racist, is that, you know, the theme of this movie, it kind of fits in with the themes that you see related, or the kind of themes that you see promoted in the media about black men, right? Black men and boys are imagined as dangerous, threatening, inherently criminal, and superhuman. They're bigger, faster, stronger, and less likely to feel pain than everybody else. So one could argue that these kind of views about black people and black men in particular have their roots in chattel slavery. So these are the words of a professor, an associate professor of sociology at Brock University by the name of Tamari Katosa. So he's written an article about The Predator and how the movie The Predator kind of reflects negative imagery of black men. Because, of course, not only have black men been looked at as threatening, inherently criminal, and superhuman, bigger, faster, stronger, and so on and so forth, they have also been called, guess what? They've been called predators. In fact, they've been called super predators, okay? So black men have often been characterized as super predators, and because of this fact, they've been subjected to harm. They've been subjected to injustice. Remember the 1994 crime bill and the justification for it, and the kind of words and the kind of iconography that was actually used, and the imagery that was used in order to justify it? Namely, that these young black boys on the block, who occupied inner city territories, they were called what? Super predators? And they need to be brought to heel. We can talk about later on why it was that they were made to be the way that they are, but right now they have to be brought to heel. Yeah, so these are the kind of, images which lead to not only the social death, which one could argue that's what prison creates for black men. It creates a situation akin to social death. But not only that, it also produces literal death for black men. And if you continue to put out imagery which shows us or highlights us in such a way that we're predators, and you can even look at the body or the somatics of this predator. He's got dreadlocks. Who are the people who typically wear dreadlocks? It ain't white guys. Primarily it's black people. So, and then, he's big and athletic and clunky, kind of like, a football player. So, I mean, the idea is it doesn't take too hard of a job, or it's not too hard of a job to associate, this kind of imagery and iconography with actual black men. And the idea that because the super predators, because the predator is an alien who needs to be killed and shot down, or at least dealt with, that, black men can be treated in the same way. He's an enemy, an alien enemy that needs to be brought to heel. All right. So that's another, as far as I'm concerned, movie that promotes anti-black misandry. Okay. Next, we come to the movie Exodus. Okay. And this is a movie from acclaimed director Ridley Scott, who is the maker or the director of Gladiator and Prometheus. And then he I guess he decides to go biblical, so he gives us this epic adventure movie by the name of Exodus, God and Kings, which the blurb for it is the story of one man's daring courage to take on the might of an empire. Using state-of-the-art visual effects and 3D immersion, Scott brings new life to the story of the defiant leader, Moses, Christian Bale, as he rises up against the Egyptian pharaoh Ramses. Joel Edgerton, and the setting, 600,000 slaves on a monumental journey and escape from Egypt and its terrifying cycle of deadly plagues. Now, the problem that I have with Exodus, God, and Kings is that, for the most part, we're talking about an event which took place in northern Africa, but the characters who primarily make up the cast of Exodus, God, and Kings are European men, the descendants of the Germanic tribes, who had no connection to, no ties with ancient Egypt or the story associated with Moses and his exodus out of that territory. So, I mean, it's just hard to it's hard to embrace and to accept the ideal that many of these men, who very well, could have been African, just like you or I look, African. All of a sudden, now they just become transmogrified into white men. I just find it hard to believe that this is not anti-black misandrist. So, again, the cast is predominantly white, but the main historical characters of the Exodus were men of color. More than likely, black African men of color. Okay? Bottom line. But if we get this whitewashed version of history. And not only that, but they do take the time to place black men in roles and black women in roles where they're servants. So there's nothing wrong with having servants in the movie who are black, but it's a problem having the main characters who are black. Sounds like some bullshit to me, but that's how we get treated, okay? And this is what Ridley Scott actually had to say about it. He says, basically, that Exodus wouldn't be financed if the lead actor was called Muhammad so-and-so. So first of all, this is what a lot of people like to do. They like to take Egypt and turn it into something Arabic, when we know that before the Arabs ever actually invaded Egypt, which many people, like to refer to as the Hittites, right? Before they even came into Upper Egypt or Lower Egypt, before they even got there, right? You had all kinds of Nubian kingdoms. The northern and the southern Kemetic lands had been united for millennia. There's mixing amongst people from the southern portion of Africa up to the northern part of Africa. But none of this gets depicted. It never gets told. It never gets explained. All it does is get typecast as something white. And then even when we begin to approach the subject of putting men of color in roles, it automatically is assumed that this place was an Arabic place, not an African place. And so any actors would have to be Muhammad so-and-sos. Triple anti-black misandry, as far as I'm concerned. Total crock of shit. Next movie. Baggage Claim. A movie with Paula Patton. And she's a nice looking lady, man. Pretty good to look at. And here's how the movie is described in the blurb. While searching for Mr. Right, a flight attendant, Montana Moore, Paula Patton, travels more than 30,000 miles and faces countless comedic encounters as she attempts to get engaged before her youngest sister's wedding. Now, automatically I have a problem with the theme of the movie because, if you look at it, she wants to get engaged before her younger sister's wedding. So none of the men that she's encountering in the context of this film are going to be treated as human beings who are deserving of being treated with innate dignity. These are just tools for her. She doesn't give a shit about any of these men. The only thing that she's doing is trying to get engaged before she goes to her sister's wedding because she doesn't want to be upstaged by her sister. That's bullshit to me. Now, maybe she grows and comes to awareness and understanding throughout the course of the movie, but the basic pretext is, that men can be used for the interest of the woman, which often happens anyway in real life, okay? So the main character, like I said, really doesn't want a relationship. She just wants to have a fiance by the time of her sister's wedding, and she uses men as utilities to serve her interests. Many of the men in this movie play unflattering characters. Some of them are philanderers. Some of them, are superficial. Of course, this is all par for the course. You got the player in the movie, which I think is, Trey Songz. And you got, like, guys who are stuffy and want to be like white men. The Taye Diggs character. I mean, and then you got some of the guys are nice guys or whatever the case may be. But ultimately, man, the movie is anti-misandrist precisely because they stereotype and typecast black men in negative ways throughout the whole entirety of the movie. And then not only that, you got a woman who's just using these men for her own interest and gain. So, yeah, there's that. The next movie I want to talk about is a movie that's put out called Dance Camp. Okay, this is a movie for younger audiences, like the PG-13 crowd. Okay, so the blurb for the movie is when Hunter, some guy named Najee Jake Jeter, gets sent to a dorky summer dance camp. He thinks he's about to have the worst summer of his life, but the quirky charm of the camp grows on him when he meets the passionate Cheyenne, who is Meg DeAngelis, and joins her dance troupe to challenge the arrogant champion Lance, Jake Paul, in the camp's Legends of Dance competition. Now, I didn't actually see this movie, but I saw, like the preview for the movie, and man, the way this little white girl was talking to this boy, man, it was like she was talking to it like a slave. I couldn't, there's no way in the world I would even approach this movie to watch it at all, even for the purpose of examining it. But this is as far as I'm willing to go with it, man. But so it's a story in which a black boy is bossed around by a white girl. The black boy brings cool to the dance competition, but he's trying to overcome his own stereotyping, which in and of itself is oxymoronic because the movie uses him as a prop at a camp, so-called dorky summer camp. But he's the cool element, but while he's bringing the cool is being managed and being handled by this white girl who's bossing him around, telling him what he should and what he shouldn't do and how he should and he shouldn't do it. If you're going to make a black guy star of a show, at least, don't have him controlled and manipulated and set straight by some little young white girl pushing him to do what he is, what he's doing, making him the best he can be. Some bullshit. Another movie, man. United Kingdom. A United Kingdom. So you got David Oyelowo, star Selma, and Rosamund Pike, girl from Gone Girl, the star of this inspiring true story of the forbidden love between the king of Botswana and a white English woman in the 1940s. Now this man is the king of Botswana. But I digress. True story, right? Okay, all right. Well, when they decided to marry, just as apartheid was being introduced into South Africa, it caused an international uproar, but their passionate romance triumphed over every obstacle and changed the course of African history. So, I don't like these kind of stories. Look, I believe you should date who you want to date, man. You want to date a white, Latino, Filipino, whoever you want to date, man, that's on you. Okay? You can. But, I just hate these stories, man, to put up the ideal that, like, white women are, like, the perfect partners for black men, and that, like, black men worship at the altar of white womanhood. I just don't like that shit, man. I don't dig it. You know what I'm saying? But, so it's a story of a black man worshiping at the altar of white womanhood. It is based on a true story, but such stories are often more complicated than they first seem, especially in the context of contemporary culture, now you have a practice where you got a lot of older white women. They're going to Africa right now and marrying young black African men. And as far as I'm concerned, man, that's like using these young black men as sex slaves. You take these poor guys from Africa that ain't got shit, ain't got a pot to piss in or a window to throw it out of. Your old sugar mama ass, wrinkled up, dry ass, come in, and now you got you a black stud muffin, ready to give you tenacious D. You know what I'm saying? This is just crazy as hell. If the roles were reversed and flipped, there'd be an outrage of this kind of thing happening. But I guess it's cool, you know, go to Africa if you're an old white woman, you're wrinkled up, like Slick Rick said at the end of the story, lottie dottie, and go get you a black stud, an African black stud. Well, I digress, man. I don't want to get too far off into it. The next thing, The Last King of Scotland with Forrest Whitaker. He won the Best Academy Award. The Academy Award for the Best Actor in this portrayal of the Ugandan dictator Idi Amin. So they consider it to be gripping, suspenseful, a stunner, inspired by real events. Now, we all know about Idi Amin. You know, he was an African dictator. He was brutal. Excuse me. He was, barbaric. But damn, I wouldn't have a problem with this movie if there were movies in which you could see white men doing the same thing. But we're going to continue to show black men being barbaric, being, savage, being corrupt, being cruel, tyrannical, but we don't show the same kind of displays. We don't have the same kind of imagery and iconography as it pertains to white men. Even though you got you got a lot of white guys that you could pick to demonstrate that kind of behavior. A whole lot. But we never delve into it. We never look into or examine that. Okay? So my problem is the depiction of another black political statesman as a monster, but where are the depictions of their own monsters? I'm talking about white folks. Where's the Cecil Rhodes? Where's the King Leopold? Where's the Columbus in the true light of Columbus and what he really did, not how he's idealized and romanticized? Where's the real, Columbus? Why don't we get those kind of stories and those kind of narratives? Oh, I guess they don't fit in to the idea of the white man as a savior and being afflicted by a burden to civilize the entirety of the savage world. So I guess, therefore, you don't see those kind of movies because they only want to be portrayed, again, as the bringers of civilization, the creators of, progress. Yeah, right. And the last movie, I'm glad, man, I'm keeping this to around about an hour. But the last movie I got, put out by 20th Century Fox and the News Corporation is, you guessed it, Waiting to Exhale. So the way the blurb puts it out there, it's like, okay, navigating through careers, family, and romance, four friends bond over the shortcomings in their love lives, namely the scarcity of good men. And we already know they're talking about good black men. Both as the other woman, Savannah, who Whitney Houston and Robin, Leela Roshan, carry on relationships with married men, each believing their lovers will leave their wives for them. On the flip side, Bernadine Angela Bassett ends up alone when her husband divorces her for his mistress. Meanwhile, Gloria, Loretta Devine, finds love with a new neighbor. So this movie, to me, is anti-misandrist because, they portray men, again, as either phalluses, objects. And then, first of all, you got these women who are basically humanized. Two of them are fucking married men. Why aren't they perceived as like doing something morally improprietous? Why aren't they looked at as trash? They're looked at as normal. Like, it ain't normal for, I guess in this culture it is, but it's not virtuous for women to be fucking around with married men waiting for their, the married men that they fucking to leave their wives. And then to look at them like they're somebody to be commiserated with. If that ain't Misandry, I don't know what it is. Okay? But then you got Angela Bassett's character, right? Bernadine, who destroys a man's car and shit, sets it on fire. And everybody in the, movie, I remember seeing this shit a long time ago, man. Women clapping their hands, standing up, giving standing ovations and shit. Because this woman destroyed the man's car, his property. Like, I've been there all this time. Like, okay, so you've been there for a while. I guess you're entitled to something, whatever the case may be. But damn, destroying property and shit. I mean, this just gives sanction for this kind of behavior. You see women in the real world actually doing this shit. Destroying property. Recently in East St. Louis, Illinois, in Marion, Illinois, a brother had his car burned up by a woman who damn near burnt herself up doing this stupid ass shit. But anyway, these are these movies, man, these chick flicks where you got women who can do no wrong and men who obviously got a problem, because why would they ever not do everything and meet all of the expectations and demands of these nice, young, respectable black ladies? So anyway, man, that's the end of that, man. I'm not, I'm done with that portion of what it is I got to do with this presentation. All right. But that's just how I feel about it. I'm going to take another break and then we're going to get up out of here. I'm going to give my closing remarks. So give me 1 second and have a little break and then we're going to get back to it. What's good, y'all? We back. You know who I am. I'm the G with a PhD. You're tuned in to the Green Gorilla channel, the place where black men can express themselves freely, straight up, no chaser. And I want to give a shout out to Ebo Sosa, man. Tell these fools out here, man. You know what I'm saying? I'm out here providing the service. I appreciate your donation, brother. Straight up. And, I'm out here putting in this work, man. It takes a little bit of effort and time and energy to put these presentations together for you guys. And again, I try not to use graduated terminology all the time. I just, I like to keep things simple. There's no need to try to put on airs and to, be deprecating and to talk down to the listeners, man. I just try to keep it real, man, and use language that everyone can understand, and to try to keep the show lively and entertaining as well as informative, man. That's all I'm trying to do. So thank you, brother Ebo Sosa, for your encouragement. And thank you, brother Rashid Barnes. I appreciate your donation, brother. I really do. I appreciate that. Straight up. I really do. And so, look, a lot of times, when we talk about black male independence, we think it's just related to relationships and being by ourselves, or we think it's about politics and voting for who we want to vote for, But we also have to think about black male independence. And I'm referring to Dr. Ronald Neal here. We have to think about black male agency in relation to our imagery. Because images are powerful. Images are more powerful than reality because they have an impact on how people are actually treated in reality. Everybody else seems to be in control of their images. And they preserve their imagery carefully, fragilely. The Jews, they have the Anti-Defamation League, and they make sure that their image is never corrupted or misrepresented. And when it is, they come out swinging, and they let people know, we will not tolerate our image being characterized in that way. We will not allow for it. Women as a whole, especially in this culture, at the current moment, they're given all kinds of roles in which they're leaders, in which they are basically heroes, superheroes. And, you know, the question is, well, where do you see black men in the mix of this? Black men are still standing on the corners doing crime movies, you know? And it's about time for us to make sure that our image is presented in the same kind of way that these other people do. You don't see characterizations of Jewish kids hanging on corners and shit, selling crack. And then you say, well, you know, Jewish guys don't do that, but black guys do that. Man, come on, man. You had Jewish gangsters and all kind of shit. You still got Jewish gangsters. Let's keep it 100, man. But you don't see their images being put out there like that, being drugged through the mud like that. It's only us. So we got to be careful, man. We got to manage our images, and we have to tell people, man, look, we need better depictions of who we are, more robust, more full, and more well-rounded characters to represent ourselves in these movies, man. And that's just my sentiment about it all, man. But I ain't done yet. Maybe this is not, you know, on your radar as something that's important, but I think that it is. It's probably more important than politics, because politics you don't get engaged in every day. You only get engaged in politics during electoral cycles. Women, you know, having independence related to women, okay, that makes some sense. I got that. Handle and manage your relationships with women. Don't be exploited and manipulated. That's cool. Get that, got that. A lot can go wrong in the context of your relationship with women in this culture. Be aware. But at the same time, the image, the way you're presented to the public every day, all day, 24 hours, 7 days of a week, that's important, man. And we better get on this. We better start writing to these companies and letting them know. We need to be at the cutting tables. We need to be at these writers' tables. No, I don't like the way you just wrote him into the storyline like that. No. We need representation there just like everybody else has representation there. So we can have a more moribund, a more substantive and respectable depiction of who it is and who we are. To me, this is the forefront of independence and agency. The image. Because if you tarnish the image, you can do whatever it is you want to do to people who have a tarnished image in the real world. If you don't feel like I feel, argue, put it in the chat, let me know you think differently, but I feel that's the case. If everybody in the world knows us as ball chunking, like, you know, like Spike Lee said, spear chunking, thick thigh having, ball kicking, balls, you know, home run hitting, touchdown scoring niggers, if that's all we are, man, that's where we gonna stay. Anyway, man, it's been the Green Gorilla Channel, man. The G with a PhD coming to you for one more episode. I'll holler at y'all later, man. Peace.
Yeah, 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 yeah. I'm a phenomenon, I shine like Orion. I came in a rap gang to smack it up like Heron, transform it like Megatron. Wait, like Yamatron, most rappers are some peons. I'ma starve them like Ramadan, I'm troublesome. You don't really want no troublesome, cause I pop guns like hood chicks do bubble gum. I been dumb, gon' stay that way till kingdom come. When the sun I'm at, unleash a demon, a polygon. I'm heavy, son, got more knowledge than Farrakhan, more gang than Cap. Karma that bitch, some name done one. Stay lit off some Shandon, maybe about they rum, stay drink with some Nordstrom. Call me that Dapper Don, more violent than Genghis Khan. The members of Taliban, niggas faker than silicon. Get hit like a .com, like soldiers in Lebanon. I'm bringing that red rum. When I get through with you, son, you gon' think I'll see rap. I carry weight like a heavyweight, bake more cakes than patty cake. Watch the fiend salivate. You a lightweight, bantamweight. Better contemplate. If you violate, make you levitate to the pearly gates. I fascinate when I conversate from the show me state where these niggas love to hate and hot murder rate. What a waste, but this flow is just a taste of God's grace. Shining this light in the ugly place in the prophecy. Got more wisdom than Socrates' philosophies. You don't really want no parts of me, can't you see? I'm slicker than Mephistopheles, stronger than Hercules, more dangerous than the Damocles. The MCs trying me pretty please. I wet up they white tees, knock them out they wallabies. Now they touch my deliries. For coming up short of the little C's when I break out the killer bees. I study music by Kirkasi, hit chicks look like Ashanti. When I'm breaking them off, they yell at odd poppy. You rack rappers is sloppy, you can't stop me with that. We can sorry, copy, malarkey. I'm a monster like Frankenstein, rock harder than Palestine. You slimes, dropping dimes, a snake and serpentine. Can't stand to see me glow like Nas with his big shine. All you haters cold in it, cold sores need calamine. But my hot shit like red bricks hitting your head, leave the sour taste up in your mouth like lemon heads, like Simply Red. Wasted some years up in the feds when I touched down. Oh, dirty red, that gave me head. I got higher vision for higher living. I'm highly driven. I'm acting women like it's some sort of sick religion. Driving an Impala, sitting on it, these 20 inches, and they spinning just like the planets in the solar system.
Black country people, over in Africa, down to America. Black country people, we make all the world go round and around, yes. Black country people, up in Canada, down to Jamaica. Black country people, we make all the world go round.